In the middle of the Sundance, the medicine man saw something the others couldn't see. Soldiers falling upside down from the sky like grasshoppers tumbling into the camp. He said, "Do not take their guns or their horses. Leave them. The battle belongs to us." 10 days later, the cavalry came over the ridge. Montana Territory. June 1876. His name was Sitting Bull. Thathaka-iotake in Lakota, which translates as a buffalo bull sitting obstinately on the ground. Immovable and powerful, he had earned his name and then grown beyond it. By 1876 he was not only a warrior but a wichasa waka, a medicine man, a visionary, a holy man whose connection to the spiritual world his people recognized as real and whose political judgment they trusted as sound. He was also the most important single figure standing between the United States government and its plan to take the Black Hills. The Black Hills are a forested mountain range rising from the plains of what is now South Dakota. The Lakota called them Paha Sapa, the heart of everything that is. They had been promised to the Lakota people in perpetuity by the Fort Laramie Treaty of 1868. One of the most solemn government-to-government agreements the United States had ever made. The government found gold there in 1874, during an exploratory expedition led by George Armstrong Custer. The treaty became inconvenient. The government tried to purchase the Black Hills. The Lakota refused to sell. Federal commissioners reported back to Washington. The Lakota will not sell. Washington decided to take a different approach. In December of 1875, the Bureau of Indian Affairs sent word to all bands off the reservations. Return to your agencies by January 31, 1876 or be considered hostile. January in Montana and the Dakotas. In winter, move your entire people, including the old and the children, across hundreds of miles of frozen plains, or the army will come. Most of the bands did not receive the message in time. Some received it and could not comply. The government declared them hostile anyway. The army began moving. Sitting Bull did not go to the reservation. He had never signed the Fort Laramie Treaty and considered himself not bound by it. He called a great gathering, the largest gathering of Plains Indian people in living memory, at the confluence of Rosebud Creek and the Little Bighorn River. People came from across the Lakota Nation, from the Northern Cheyenne, from the Arapaho. At its height, the camp stretched for 3 miles along the Little Bighorn River. There may have been 10,000 people in it. There were certainly 2,000 or more fighting men. They had come because Sitting Bull had called them. They had come because the government had given them no other option. They had come because this was the last free country left. The Sundance happened in June of 1876, 10 days before the battle. Sitting Bull participated in the ceremony through an ordeal that lasted through the night and into the morning, a traditional test of endurance and spiritual openness that required the participant to dance continuously while offering pieces of his own flesh. 100 cuts. Until the vision came. He saw soldiers falling from the sky. They fell upside down into the camp, like insects. He heard a voice. These soldiers do not have ears. They would not listen, and so they will die. But do not take their weapons or their horses. Leave them. They belong to us, but you must not touch them. He told the camp what he had seen. They believed him. June 25, 1876. 3 separate columns of the U.S. Army had been converging on the Indian camp from different directions, trying to trap it. One of these columns was the 7th Cavalry Regiment under Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer. Custer was a Civil War hero who had never entirely adjusted to peace. He was reckless in ways that his superiors found valuable in wartime and problematic in any other context. He had disobeyed orders before. He had survived it before. His Crow and Arikara scouts reached the top of a ridge and saw the camp below. One of them said later that his heart fell when he saw the size of it. He tried to tell Custer how many warriors were down there. Custer did not listen. Custer divided his regiment, roughly 650 men, into 3 separate attack forces and sent them against a camp of 2,000 warriors from different directions. He took 210 men with him toward the north end of the camp. He never reached it. The warriors came up out of the coulees and the river bottom in numbers Custer's detachment could not absorb. The fight lasted less than an hour by most accounts. When it was over, Custer and every man with him were dead. 210 soldiers killed in the hills above the Little Bighorn River in the largest military defeat the U.S. Army had suffered since the Civil War. The other detachments, under Major Marcus Reno and Captain Frederick Benteen, were pinned down and survived only because the main fight was over and the warriors chose not to press the attack. Sitting Bull's vision had been exact. The soldiers had fallen upside down into the camp. The country was not grateful for this news. The battle happened 10 days before the United States celebrated its centennial. 100 years as a nation. A celebration of its power and its destiny. The news reached the East on July 4th. The response was total. The army poured into the region in numbers that could not be resisted. Band by band, the Lakota were forced back onto the reservations through the winter of 1876 and 1877. The free life on the plains was over. Sitting Bull held out. He took several hundred followers north into Canada, beyond the reach of the U.S. Army. He stayed for 4 years. Canada would not feed his people. The buffalo were almost gone. The herds reduced from 30 million animals to hundreds of thousands in a decade of commercial hunting. Starvation was the slow weapon the border could not stop. In 1881, Sitting Bull rode back into the United States and surrendered at Fort Buford. He expected to be imprisoned. He had already decided what to say at his trial. There was no trial. He was held for 2 years. Then allowed to join the Standing Rock Agency in the Dakotas. In 1885, he toured with Buffalo Bill's Wild West show for a single season. He was paid $50 a week and kept all the money from selling autographs, which was substantial. He was announced as the Slayer of Custer, a title he had not earned, since he was directing medicine and strategy and did not personally fight that day. But the audiences believed it and he accepted it without correcting them. He said later that he pitied the white children who came to see him, because their parents had not taught them anything. He returned to Standing Rock after 1 season and never left again. The ghost dance movement came to the reservations in 1889. It was a religious revitalization, a vision shared across the Plains peoples that if they danced the right ceremony, the earth would renew, the buffalo would return, and the dead would rise. It was not violent in itself. The Indian agents and the army decided it was dangerous anyway. Sitting Bull, at Standing Rock, allowed the ghost dance to happen on his land. He had not committed any crime. He had not incited any violence. The agent decided to have him arrested before trouble could start. December 15, 1890. At dawn, 43 Indian police came to Sitting Bull's cabin on the Grand River. He came to the door. His followers gathered outside, dozens of them, pressing close. A struggle broke out. Who fired first is disputed. Sitting Bull was shot in the head by an Indian police officer named Red Tomahawk. He fell in the yard outside his own cabin. He was approximately 59 years old. 2 weeks later, on December 29, 1890, U.S. soldiers surrounded a Lakota camp at a creek called Wounded Knee and a confrontation over the disarmament of a deaf warrior named Black Coyote became a massacre. Between 200 and 300 Lakota people were killed. Sitting Bull had warned that this was coming. He had spent his life trying to prevent it through diplomacy, through resistance, through presence, through vision. He had seen the soldiers falling from the sky. He had seen this too. No one had listened. If this story hit you the way it hits me every time I sit with it, hit the like button. It costs you 2 seconds and it tells the algorithm this kind of history is worth finding. Share it with someone who cares about the true story of the American West. There are people who need to hear what happened here and haven't found it yet. And if you're not subscribed, now is the time. There are 60 of these coming. One era, one person, one story at a time. Subscribe, like, share. I'll see you in the next one.